What's going on, everybody? Happy November. Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a review roundup episode for you all this week. There'll be no full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week. We had one planned, and then work and life gets in the way, obviously. So please forgive me on that. But we'll be back next week with a full episode. We have a pretty cool one in store for you all. We have our first, our first screening since The Substance. I want to say that we have a review for you all, and it's gonna be The Rock's new movie Red One. Also, we have a lot of cool things for you all in store for the rest of 2024. A few holiday games, holiday themed episodes. Look out for that. So again, we have a lot in store for you all for this week, for this year, for the rest of the year before 2024 ends. So look out for that. But in the meantime, I have this week's review roundup episode for you all this week, and I'm pretty good this time compared to my overdue last few episodes of my review roundups. And this week I have two films about time and life and how precious time is, and that is I have my review of We Live in Time, as well as a movie called Here. Two very, in a way, similar movies about how precious and how crucial time is for all our lives. So I'm very eager to review these movies both for you guys on this week's review roundup episode. As always, my friends, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Like I said, we've been teasing the video element of the podcast. Have no fear, we should definitely have that in store for you guys. I'm trying to say maybe the first week of December. We're figuring out some kind of like technical aspects and lighting and video quality stuff too. We have Zoom, obviously, but also we have kind of like a camera stuff. So we're hopefully have that. I think me and Nick were talking about this last week, that we're trying to have that for you guys hopefully by December. So if not Thanksgiving, probably before the Christmas and New Year break. So look out for that. We are very eager to do the video element of the podcast for you. We've been teasing it now for almost a year now, so forgive us. We're just trying to figure out the kinks and the details, so look out for that. A lot of cool things planned for you all, for us and this podcast, and for our lovely audience. Hopefully when 2025 begins. Like I said, we have our South by Southwest that we're going to in May. March. I think May is April CinemaCon, and then possibly Comic-Con in July. So in March, we have our first big festival coverage as press, as critics in the podcast, and that is South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. So look out for that. So yeah, guys, we have a lot in store for you guys for 2024 as the year ends. Also, when the new year begins, we're just getting started. So look out for that. And also, we're going to probably have a big 2-year anniversary episode. I think it's in 2 weeks. We've been doing this 2 years, which is, I can't believe it's been 2 years already. I mean, time goes by so fast, and you'll probably hear me say this a lot in this episode about how quickly time goes. So yeah, guys, we have a lot in store for you all. So again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon listeners, please subscribe, rate the show, review us. Please want to hear back from you guys. Again, all feedback is good feedback to us, both negative, positive, or even neutral. We'll take it. We want to hear from you guys. What are you liking about the show? What can we cover? What do you want us here to talk about? Movies, TV, more trivia games, stuff like that. Let us know in the comments and review section, ratings, whether on YouTube, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Spotify, or Apple. And to our Apple Podcast fans, like I said, we really do need your help getting to that 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts. Like I said, every week we get more opportunities and more coverage when we have more ratings on Apple Podcasts. So please, with our Apple Podcast fans, listen, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, we love you guys so much. But to our Apple Podcast fans, we really do need that 200 reviews and ratings as soon as possible for us to do more cool stuff on the podcast and for our brand. So thank you all so much for listening the past couple of years. Like I said, it means the world to all of us here at the podcast, and hope you're all still enjoying the show. All right, my friends, like I said, I have two time-related films for you all this week. And I'll begin with this movie, which is We Live in Time. We Live in Time actually is a very interesting movie because here in Phoenix, we tend to get some movies late. We're not a huge market. We're a decent-sized market, but films like We Live in Time, or even Saturday Night, or even a Nora, which I haven't seen yet. I'm dying to go see. We kind of get things pretty late, and we don't have a lot of we don't have really a wide indie release like New York or San Fran or in LA or even a Seattle, stuff like that. So we tend to get some of the smaller movies a little bit later. But We Live in Time came on my radar, I want to say about a month ago. I think I heard about a teaser over the summer, but I wasn't on my radar. But I saw a trailer for it, and I want to say October or not September. It hit me, and all the emotional feels for sure. The A24, A24 now was killing the game the past couple years with some of their really creative, very unique storytelling from Robert Eggers to Greta Gerwig to Safdie brothers. I mean, everyone has really kind of like just really stepped up their game in terms of A24 and really kind of created something like special. So in the past couple of years now, we've seen really A24 kind of like take over the game. Daniels with everything everywhere all at once. A24 really has been really a pioneer for a lot of indie original filmmaking. So I mean, I'm grateful for A24 and all their amazing content, amazing films and TV shows. They did Beef on Netflix, which was a huge hit last year. I think the Golden Globes and Emmys. So A24 is killing the game. I think they're one of the best studios right now working in film and TV. So props to A24. But We Live in Time follows an up-and-coming chef and a recent divorcee as they find their lives forever changed when a chance encounter brings them together in a decade-spanning, deeply moving romance. And this stars the great Andrew Garfield and the phenomenal Florence Pugh. Fun story, actually. This is a true story, too. I want to say I was doing my fellowship internship when I was in London during my semester abroad in 2019. And I will say this right before Florence Pugh really blew up. This was around that time, that movie called Fighting With My Family, the kind of WWE true story about the wrestler Paige with Florence Pugh, obviously, Nick Frost, Lena Headey, The Rock, Vince Vaughn's in it. And I remember seeing a lot of these, posters everywhere, even though it's a U.S.-based film, but it was still a pretty big movie in the U.K. international markets. And I've seen these posters everywhere, on the London buses, on the tube stations, billboards, stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this looks pretty interesting. But I think I was busy. I didn't get to see it, whatever, until after it came on streaming, whatever. But I'm seeing this poster and these trailers everywhere. Like, who is this girl? Who's this actress? And sure enough, I'm at the cafe at the BFI in South Bank, London. I'm getting a croissant, I'm getting like a coffee, whatever. And this girl who's like a table over me looks so familiar. I'm like, where do I know her from? Like, I can't pinpoint who I know her from, whatever. I'm blanking. I'm getting on my computer, kind of doing stuff for like school and interning, whatever. And then I hear, Florence, they're ready for you. I said, Florence? I'm like, Florence? And I'm like, oh, it's the actress from that Fighting With My Family movie. Didn't really know who she was really until that point, obviously. But man, after that happened, did she become a phenomenal actress and one of the biggest names in film and TV right now. I mean, that was the same year. Then it was Little Women the same year, Midsummer. She got cast in the Black Widow film. So that was a year of like, man, she just blew up. And I was like, man, if only I spoke to her before she blew up. Again, I don't want to bother her. She was on her phone or eating a breakfast sandwich too, and I was like, I don't even bother her. But kind of cool to see my little kind of like see her before she kind of blew up as she is Florence Pugh right now, and she's a phenomenal actress. But We Live in Time, again, like I said, this movie, it's a very heavy film. I'll be honest. It's a very heavy film, very emotional. I was hearing some amazing things from the film festival circuit. I think it had a huge response at TIFF. And I know people that were raving about this movie from early reactions and early screenings and press screenings and festivals. And I was okay, it's on my radar for sure. But again, like I said, we got it pretty late here in Phoenix. Again, we're, as you all know, our podcast, Nick, myself, we're not on Moses and Joel, we're not on the A24 press list yet. We're working on it. Hopefully one day, fingers crossed and knock on wood. But that's the one I was hearing just amazing things about. I'm like, okay. And I was hearing more and more about it as the more press came out about it and then more like close to the release date. And I saw it on a Sunday. I was looking forward to seeing it. It came to my Regal Theater next to my apartment here in Gilbert. And I walked over. It was me for first during the trailers and two women sat behind me. This is a very beautiful film. It's very emotional. It's very moving. And, watching this, I was just blown away by both Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. The performances are just top tier, Oscar worthy. But the heart of the movie is the chemistry between Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. Like, you believe they're in love the moment you see them on screen. You're like, I'm with this. I believe this. And, someone like me, his movies told in non-linear storytelling, and you'll hear me on the podcast from time to time saying, the storytelling wasn't not for me, and I'm not the biggest fan of non-linear storytelling in it. When it works well like a Pulp Fiction, obviously, Memento, most recently Strange Darling. You hear me rave about Strange Darling back in August. And when it's done right, I'm definitely all for it. But there's times, I'm trying to think of a recent example where I was like, I don't really care for this, nonlinear storytelling. And you'll hear me talk about it with here down the road in this episode. But I'm not the biggest fan sometimes of nonlinear storytelling. I think it's kind of like not a cop out, but it's a bit of a gamble sometimes in film and TV. when it works. But for me, I think it doesn't work more than it does work. But with this, I was very intrigued by the nonlinear storytelling because it worked. And I also could follow along from what's happening to what, here, whatever. And, despite more of the heavy, more emotional nature of the film, I was getting some Nora Ephron. I was getting some early Rob Reiner, like very When Harry Met Sally vibes. I'm like, oh, it's a throwback to those films of like, not only a rom-com, but those romance movies for adults, that you watch with, like, made for like the more mature audiences. And I was like, you know what? We haven't had romance films like this, I think, on the big screen in quite some time. I think A24, I believe the director's name is Noah Crawley. I'll double check. John Crawley, excuse me. And it's very a film towards, adults and the very kind of heavy themes about life and death and how precious time is. But man, this movie got to me. Like from the moment the first 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm hooked, I'm invested. But again, the key and heart of this movie is definitely the chemistry between Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. Like I fell in love with them. I fell in love with their love story. You see a lot of ups and downs. You can see the trailer. I'm trying to keep this non-spoiler, but there's a lot to do with, health issues and cancer and pregnancy and, divorce and, everything that you can think of life, good and bad, this movie covers, which I think is really mature and very impressive of them that they fit all this in like an hour 45, hour 15-minute movie. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Andrew Garfield fan. Listen, I remember seeing him in Social Network when I was in 7th grade. I was like, dude, who is this guy? I'm not gonna lie, when he was announced to be Spider-Man, I was like, listen, I loved him in Social Network, but him as Spider-Man, and granted, I was also more biased to Tobey Maguire because, Spider-Man for me as a kid was my life. That was my world. Like, I was obsessed with the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire movies. Like, at the time, I'd probably say Maguire was probably my favorite actor when I was a kid, but I was very protective over Spider-Man and Sam Raimi's films and Tobey Maguire. They were a big part of my life and why I love movies and why I love Spider-Man so much. I was like, okay, but obviously I grew to love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I think he was very underrated as Spider-Man. I think how they kind of brought him back in No Way Home was a very beautiful, very kind of like, full send, very kind of full circle kind of a arc for his character, his version of Spider-Man. But again, I haven't seen Andrew Garfield really have an accent in a movie in a long time. I'm trying to think of like Hacksaw Ridge, Tick Tick Boom. What else? I mean, obviously Spider-Man, Under the Banner of Heaven, Silence. Like I haven't really heard him have it. I haven't seen hear him have his accent in a movie, his actual accent in a movie, probably in a long, long time. So it was really cool to see him kind of like be his kind of like really like charming British self in this movie. But yeah, when you watch him, it just thing about both Florence and Andrew is that they're very good at having a lot of performance done by their facial expressions and their eyes, especially Florence. I mean, Florence especially, but Andrew, if you watch Spider-Man, if you watch Tick Tick Boom, the eyes are just kind of like, just the way he kind of looks at someone, the way he kind of reacts to something. It's all in the eyes. And again, you hear me all the time on the podcast saying, if an actor can convey so much by saying so little, but it's all in the eyes, they're just a phenomenal actor. And I think Andrew has that down pat. With that said, though, this is definitely Florence Pugh's movie. This is her movie. This is her moment to shine. This is her platform. Both of them are phenomenal in this, but really the heart of this movie, other than the chemistry between both of them, is that Florence Pugh is on a whole nother level of a performance. And I'll be honest, I think this is her best performance as an actress so far, if you ask me. I thought, again, obviously in Midsommar, Little Women, she's great in. I thought she was good in Dune for her small role, but no, truly, this is her best performance as an actress, in my opinion, so far. I both think they're Oscar worthy, but I think probably more of a push for Florence in this because what she has to go through, what she shows, her strengths, her weaknesses, her vulnerability, she goes through a lot in this movie as an individual, as a human being. You're just like, wow, you're rooting for these people, but also rooting for her because like you're seeing her go through all this stuff, with the pregnancy, with her health issues, with what she went through, with her job and career or whatever. She's testing herself as an actress, but in the movie, you see her really commit to this role 100% and with all her love and all her passion. It's a really passionate performance. So it wouldn't surprise me that this gets an Oscar nomination or even a win for her. I thought she was really tremendous in this movie. Again, I love Little Women, the remake of Little Women made by Greta Gerwig, but truly this is her movie. This is Florence Pugh's movie, and she's remarkable in this. I was just moved by her performance. Again, they bring so much to this movie, but at the heart of this all too, like I said, Florence Pugh delivers a just beautiful moving performance. I will say I had some issues with some of the pace at times, a little nitpicking, and also too, like, you know, they talk about Andrew Garfield's job. He works for this kind of like, not marketing, but I think this like cereal company in the UK. And it's kind of like a throwaway joke a little bit, but they don't really explore it as much as I thought it was going to be, because I think they explore more of Florence Pugh's career as a chef throughout the movie. But they kind of talk about Andrew Garfield's like, oh, his job, blah, 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 blah. But it's not really explored. It's kind of like mentioned in passing a couple of times. You see it maybe once at the beginning of the film. You know, obviously it's all out of order. But at the same time, you kind of want to see a little bit more of Andrew Garfield's kind of like what he went through in work. Again, he's also a recent divorcee, however you say it. But I do think we can use a little bit more backstory towards his character a little bit. But again, more of a nitpick for myself, where I was like, okay, for sure. And there were certain things where I was like, oh, I can't wait to again, keep this on spoiler. Ooh, maybe you can explore this a little bit more, or bring up this again, or why is this happening, and this whatever. I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory, or you can follow along pretty well. But there were some things where I was kind of like, ooh, if they explore that a little bit more, I kind of feel more fulfilled with this, or this happened, I kind of want to see this happen. And this is more nitpicking kind of from my own viewing experience. But I was hooked the first 10 minutes, like I said, and this movie really shows of how precious our time is on this earth, and whether you get sick, whether your loved one gets sick, obviously, it's hard. And I think this movie shows of like, the ups and downs of like the life, and the good and the bad. And sometimes the bad outweighs the good, unfortunately, and how you're willing to be, how strong you are. Are you a fighter? How will you get through this? And I think the movie kind of, it shows of like, if you've been through so much, what else can life throw at you? And I think I was like, wow, like that's pretty good. You put in, perspective, you're like, yeah, what more can I put up with this? And I think the movie kind of shows of like, some people have it really bad, some people are really privileged to kind of have this in their life. But again, it's all about really appreciating the now. I think about this a lot after seeing this movie. I was like, appreciate the now, because tomorrow is never promised. Don't take things for granted. Don't take anyone for granted. People, experiences, whatever life throws at you. I think everything's a learning experience. And this movie really shows of like, enjoy the now, because tomorrow is never promised. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good thing to take away from this movie. It's funny too. I mean, I heard people that saw it like, oh, it's really funny. I was like, you know what? Yeah, like at times I was laughing out loud, and I was like, this is really funny despite the serious nature and the serious tones and themes of this movie. I was laughing. I was chuckling out loud. This is really funny. And I think this movie does really well of balancing the humor despite all the heavy natures of the film. And I was like, wow. Again, testament to John Crowley, the director, to Florence and Andrew as performers. Also, the writing, Nick Payne, who I'm not familiar with his work as a writer. Not true. I think I saw his movie, The Last Letter to Your Lover, a couple years ago. I thought it was very, also not a heavy film, but the dialogue in this is very, very, very very well written. It's very heavy, but it's also very real. And I think when dialogue can really portray real situations very well, very maturely, with very heavy thematics, it makes the audience kind of like feel like the heaviness and the stakes of certain characters' fates and decisions and outcome, whatever. And I was like, wow. So again, it's a film that we don't see it too often anymore on the big screen, and I hope this movie's doing pretty well. I don't know how to kind of limited release and kind of wide release, but I was really moved by this film. And again, I definitely got emotional at times where I was like, oh my god, are you kidding me? I will say again, keep this non-spoiler as much as I can. It only been out for a couple of weeks. I'm keeping it non-spoiler for you all. It's definitely worth to watch in theaters if you can. It's the ending, I think, is a little open-ended. I mean, I think I kind of know what happened, what happens at the end. They don't really go into too much detail of like, this happened, this happened, whatever. But it's pretty open-ended. But I think for the most, I think we're all on the same page of like the outcome of the ending. It kind of ends definitely abruptly. You're just like, oh, okay, that's it. But it wasn't to a point where I was like, wow, that's it. Like, what the hell were y'all thinking? No, I didn't feel like that whatsoever. But I will say the movie does kind of feel like just kind of abrupt ending where I was like, they just could have used maybe another 20 or 15 more minutes for the runtime, minus credits. But yeah, I was really moved by this film. Like I said, I've been very emotional in films this year a lot. From I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, it ends with us. A few other things I saw this year where I was like, oh man, this is getting me emotional. So Definitely been a year of Arthur the King was another example, but there's definitely been a year of making me feel very emotional movies with some tears shed here and there. So I'm giving this movie a solid. I'll give this movie a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think it's well worth the watch. If you can see in theaters, absolutely. And again, you watch it because I think this is a masterclass in acting and direction, as well as just a story about love and life, and again how precious life is. So and again, enjoying the now. I keep kind of telling myself this as my own reminder. Enjoy the now. I'm a person that kind of thinks about like, oh, what's next, or like, okay, this is cool, but what next? And I think this movie kind of put in my perspective of like, enjoy the now. Enjoy time now. Enjoy the people that you're around with, because tomorrow is never promised, and you never know what life might have in store for you, both good or bad. So yeah, guys, definitely check out We Live in Time. Give this movie a solid 8.5 out of 10. And also, please watch Andrew Garfield's Elmo video. It's a very moving couple-minute segment, and I teared up too, because it's definitely a year of grief and loss for me, for personal reasons, obviously. But please watch his Elmo, his story about Elmo, his Sesame Street snippet, because it's really moving, really beautiful, and the way that Andrew Garfield talks about grief and loss in life is very, very moving. But also, it'll definitely hit the heartstrings for sure. But I would highly recommend We Live in Time to anyone, and will this be my top 10? It's, my top 10 right now, more like my top 15 right now. Yeah, I shorted it down before we do our end of the year wrap up episode on the podcast, but I would not be surprised this is probably my top 10 of the year. But right now, I'm kind of say top 15 right now, but it's a very beautiful film. Oh, the score is beautiful. The score of the movie is so moving. It's beautiful. It's almost a character of its own in this movie. And the score I had in my head throughout the entire day and the next day too, where I was like, oh, the score is beautiful. Like I said, it's like a mix of like, the score to me is kind of a mix of like When Harry Met Sally and also with like Up. So very beautiful music and good soundtrack as well. But yeah, guys, definitely check out and put this movie on your radar. We Live in Time. Moving on to another film about time, and that is Robert Zemeckis' Here, starring the great Robin Wright and Tom Hanks. It's a little Forrest Gump reunion 30 years later. I think it was same writing too. I think it was Eric Roth who wrote and won the Oscar for Forrest Gump. And Eric Roth to me is a phenomenal screenwriter, from Forrest Gump to the Star is Born remake in 2018 to Dune Part 1, Killers of the Flower Moon. Phenomenal writer. I think did he write Mank? Or I think he helped write Mank. Or no, he also wrote Benjamin Button, Ali, Munich. Again, talented writer, really amazing writer. But this reunites Eric Roth, Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, as well as, I believe, Alan Silvestri, the legendary Alan Silvestri as a composer. I'm trying to, who else was, and there was someone else too. Was it the producer? No, sorry. The cinematographer, Don Burgess, who also was cinematographer for Forrest Gump. I think a lot of Zemeckis' movies. And if you don't here's a very interesting film. Here follows a generational story about the families and the special place they inhabit, sharing in love, loss, laughter, and life. And I'll try to explain this the proper way. If you know the trailers, the movie is all in one shot on location. The camera does not move at all throughout the movie. It's just the camera does not move. You see this one spot from prehistoric dinosaurs to the era of Native Americans to era of early American history to like politics to when the house was being built, originally being built, and then you see a family of early aviation. You see the creator of the Lazy Boy. Then you see it with Tom Hanks's family, before he was born, his ancestors and his parents and his grandparents, and then you see a family in modern day, and then you see kind of like in the future, obviously a bit of the future. In the present day. So it's all in one place. It's one camera, one location, very innovative, a lot of de-aging. And if you know Zemeckis, Back to the Future and Castaway and Forrest Gump, and Christmas Carol, Beowulf. He's The Walk. He's a very innovative filmmaker. He's always been that way. Obviously, Roger Rabbit was his. He's a very innovative filmmaker. He's always pushing the boundaries, kind of like James Cameron or Chris Nolan in terms of like technical aspects and camera work and visual effects and technology. And as a kid, I grew up on Zemeckis. Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. But I remember watching Castaway when I was a kid, watching Roger Rabbit when I was a kid. This goes on and on and on. So as a kid, I grew up on Zemeckis' films, Spielberg's films, I mean, I can think of like all those movies I grew up on watching his. I mean, to me, as a kid, Back to the Future was my life. Like, I mean, I went watching with my parents on VHS over and over and over again. I was obsessed with these movies. Roger Rabbit was a big part of my life as a kid too. I was a big Looney Tunes and Disney animated fan. The Polar Express was a big part of my childhood. I think it was one of my first IMAX movies with my parents. We sat in the front row. So to me, he's been a big part of my childhood. Then post, I think when I'm an adult, not so much. I want to say Flight, I just was not a big fan of. I remember it came out when I was in high school, and I was like, I want to see that movie. And I saw it on like stream on demand, or I rented it on Redbox, and I was like, this was kind of whatever. But I haven't like one of his. I'll say this too. I think some of my out of theater reaction that this is probably his best film since The Walk in 2015. The Walk is one of the most very interesting experiences in my theater experience. I think my dad and I saw when I was a senior in high school at a screening. Unfortunately, the now closed IMAX Navy Pier. So it used to be Navy Pier in Chicago. Used to have this really amazing IMAX, full 143 true IMAX. So The Dark Knight there with my dad when I was a kid. The full 143, like one of the true IMAXs. But now I think AMC sold it to the city of Chicago for some reason. It is what it is. But same, that was real IMAX in Chicago and Illinois. But the Walk was about this. I forgot his name. He was Philippe Petit, and he walked from the Twin Tower to the Twin Tower. I think it was in 1974. And he walks the World Trade Center towers, and he walks on a wire. And I remember seeing that. My dad and I were like in 3D. We were like, we had a vertigo. Our hands were clammy and shaky. We're like, oh my gosh, like you just feel like, so don't fall. And seeing that IMAX especially was like experience. You're just like, whoa, like you just felt so nervous. Again, the visual effects were amazing. But that movie kind of just came and went, and like no one saw that movie but my dad and I, maybe a few other people. But that was we had experience in theaters and IMAX especially. But I'm trying to think post that. I think I fell asleep watching Ally. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of Flight. Welcome to Tomorrow, when I heard it was really bad, I think I fell asleep watching that. I heard Pinocchio was terrible. So I think a lot of people were writing up Zemeckis. They were like, dude, he's done. Like, he's done. He hasn't had no more. I think he lost his way. Again, I do want to watch. I heard Ally was pretty good. So I haven't watched it yet. I think when I was a freshman in college. But again, a lot of his movies kind of just come and go. So here I saw the trailer for a couple over the summer. I was like, this could either work very well or be a stupid gimmick and go, all right, that's it. And I was hoping this was going to be not a gimmick. And when the reviews came out, when the embargo lifted, I'm going to be real, I was a little nervous because I was hearing not good things. I was hearing nothing but bad things. I was like, you know what? I can't be surprised, but I'm going in with my own hopefully hope with my own kind of like own personal, I'll judge it for myself. I'm not going to lie, guys. I think a lot of the critics and reviewers are a little too harsh on this movie. I will say, though, I'll be honest. If you're not with the whole one location with one camera not moving at all throughout the entire movie after the first 10 minutes, this movie is not for you. And that's okay. I think a lot of people were like, will this gimmick kind of get old? It's not for me. I will, again, being honest, I see people in the audience I saw it on Friday with, and I saw it on Friday open night, and I was definitely the youngest person in the audience for sure. I said, if you're not a fan of this movie within the first 10 minutes, the whole gimmick and how it's structured, not for you. It's not going to be for you. For me, I thought it worked for the most part. I didn't have an issue with it. I was really intrigued by the performances, kind of just like this innovative approach to storytelling and filmmaking. I thought the performances in this were really good. I thought Tom Hanks is good, but to me, I thought Robin Wright and Paul Bettany were the heart of this movie. Robin Wright is phenomenal in this. I've been a huge Robin Wright fan since I was in Forrest Gump. I thought she was phenomenal in Blade Runner 2049. She was great. Who else I saw her in recently? I was like, oh my gosh, she was so good in. I heard she's good in House of Cards. I thought she was really good as the Ant in Wonder Woman. Again, for her small roles, I like Moneyball and Breakable, I thought she was really good in. To me, I think she's a phenomenal actress. And watching her in this, she's acting her ass off. And I thought she was phenomenal. And someone who I'm not the biggest fan of an actor, I'll be honest. Paul Bettany is a decent actor, but except for Vision, and I don't think maybe in Avengers, and I think also Solo, I haven't been really kind of like sold on him as an actor. But in this, I thought he showed a huge range as an actor in his performance. And to me, Tom Hanks is good, obviously, but the heart of this movie, of the performances, is no doubt about it, is Robin Wright and Paul Bettany. And they just acted their ass off, and they really did something really special with so much emotion, so much passion to this project. I think Zemeckis still has his direction. Is it top tier like Forrest Gump, Back to the Future? No. But I think out of his most recent work that I've seen of his work recently, I thought it still was a very well made film and well directed film. I do think people are a little harsh on him the past decade of his work. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Flight. I think it's still a well made film, but to me, I had issues with the story, and I was kind of just like the theme and overall. Again, different podcast for a different time. But I thought direction was pretty solid for the most part. And like We Live in Time, this movie really showcases like the past, present, future, and how precious life is. And this movie is very fragile. It's a very emotional, it's a very sweet film. It's very fragile. And I mean by that is that like this movie really shows of like, you know, generations and generations of like, you know, where we come from, and then, you know, the love that goes into people's lives, and, you know, here and there, what could happen next. And again, kind of like We Live in Time, is appreciating the people that, you know, you grew up with and you are raised by, and hopefully it's good, obviously. But again, it's like We Live in Time, I say how precious time is and how quick time goes. And we keep saying like, wow, I can't believe it's been this already. I can't believe it's been this already. Wow, how quick time goes. And really, that you blink, you're gonna regret something in your life. And the movie showcases a lot about regret and what if and what could have been. And watching it, I was like, yeah, I again, kind of like We Live in Time, I was just like, I kind of put in perspective of like, wow, how quick life is. I mean, I think 8 years ago I started college, and I'm like, wow, college can go by so slow. 8 years later, I was like, I do miss college. I miss the times with my friends. I miss the memories I was making with friends and family, obviously. And when I was a kid with my family and cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents, I'm just like, yeah, wow, time flies by so quickly. And before you know it, it's too late, or you just, you know, the good things have now come to an end. And kind of like We Live in Time, I was very emotional in this movie quite a bit, to a point where I was like, oh man, am I tearing up again? I thought about my grandparents on my mom's side, my nana and poppy on my dad's side, and I was just like, man, this is just a very sweet movie, and made me think about like the good times and like the memories I have with my family and memories I want to make with my family, and, you know, how precious love is. And, you know, it's, you know, if you're willing to really make an effort in your life and be a good person, how like that has a positive outcome. And then if you don't really have a good job or a good outcome on look on life, you might have a negative outcome. It might have kind of like a spiraling out or downfall, whatever. So I do think this movie is very beautiful in that sense. Again, a lot of the themes are very heavy, like We Live in Time, where it's just like the past, present, future, and time is really precious, and just the quality of time that we may have or may not have is like, you don't want to live your life of what if or what could have been. I'm learning that obviously going to therapy and just being with loved ones, talking to my parents, talking to my family and friends, and, you know, coworkers, of like, yeah, wow, time really does not slow down. So you got to make the most out of everything in your life, good or bad, find a positive outcome on everything, because before you know it, life fortunately goes away. Life ends for all of us, and it's part of life. You know, death is part of life, and like I said, it's a very moving film at times when it comes to like the themes and the story. But I do have a really big issue with this film in terms of the structure and storytelling. I thought with the trailer that the movie's going to take place in chronological order, from like dinosaurs to Native Americans to American politics, and then to like how the house was built and who lived in the house from the beginning to the present day. And the movie jumps all over the place, like from dinosaurs to present day to 2010s to COVID to this part to the 20s to the 40s to the 50s to the 70s. It's like it goes all over the place. It's not told in order, where I didn't mind that and We Live in Time, but for this movie I had an issue with, because it just kept jumping left and right. Like 1 minute we're in the 70s, 1 minute we're in the dinosaur time, 1 minute we're in the during the times of during when the Native Americans had this land, and then we're in COVID time. Now we're in the present day. Now we're in this time. Now we're in that. It's like, slow down, take your time. I think the movie would have benefited from being told in order, in chronological order, because I think the movie would have been more well told, well structured. I believe, I could be wrong, that this is based off of a graphic novel. I think the graphic novel was told in that order, but for me, we just kept jumping around almost every few seconds, where I was like, no, slow down. Like, I want to be in this. I want to learn more about this. Then back to dinosaurs, back to Native Americans, back to COVID, back to the 20s, back to the lazy boy inventions. Like, whoa. Slow down. It just jumped so frantically and frequently, where I was like, I wanted to spend more time with certain things. I will say the movie definitely, the main storyline is Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, Paul Bettany, and the actress who was also in Flight. What was her name? She's also in the Sherlock Holmes films. Please forgive me. Kelly Riley. Like, Paul Bettany and Kelly Riley play Tom Hanks' parents, and it's mostly that family story, and that definitely is more the heart and like the main drive of the film. But again, the film definitely takes time to establish what were the Native Americans doing during this time, what were the dinosaurs doing this time, what was Benjamin Franklin and Teddy Roosevelt doing at this time, at this location, when was the house built, who bought it first, who lived in there first, who lived in there second. There's a family, there's a pilot that lived there with his family, with his wife and daughter, and then there was again the guy who made Lazy Boy lived there, quote unquote, and then there was a family during the COVID time that lived there more modern day, and then went back to the end where Tom Hanks is there with his wife, played by Robin Wright. In that part, it just jumped around just so much, where I was like, I kind of just feel a little like, kind of a bit of like, almost not kind of like almost like whiplash of just like all these storylines, blah 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 blah. And I do think the movie took its time to kind of establish who's there what, and maybe some flashbacks here and there, maybe for the modern time to Tom Hanks's family's time. It just jumped around a lot. Is this movie anything special right off the bat? No, but it's very innovative. Again, solid performances. It's very innovative. The de-aging I thought looked good from okay. I thought it looked good on Tom Hanks at time. I'm pretty sure they put his face on another person's body because of the posture and like the way he moved. And also Paul Bettany, they really don't age him at all until the very end. And I was like, he kind of looks the same that he was years ago. And I was like, okay. But they aged his wife, played by Kelly Riley, quite a bit. And also, too, there's a thing, not spoiler, Paul Bettany has this condition from the war that's like brought up once and then forgot about throughout the entire movie to the very, very, very end. And I was like, wait a second. Why'd you bring up in the first place to forget about it during this 20, 30 year span and then bring it up to the very end? Where was that during the 20, 30 year period when he was becoming a dad and a grandparent? I was like, oh, okay. And he looked the same throughout most of the time. And I was like, they only aged him at the very end, where I was like, yeah, he didn't really age at all, but everyone else did. Kind of weird. So there's some things where I was like, I don't know about this, guys. But I do think I said when the movie focuses on when Tom Hanks' character is growing up to be Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks as we know, quote unquote, as we know, as a teenager to adult, and obviously with Robin Wright, the movie definitely shows of like what Robin Wright's going through, what Paul Bettany's going through, what Kelly Riley's going through. Like I said, this movie had a little bit of emotional pull on me because I've had family that has passed away due to sickness and illness or Parkinson's or some kind of disease or disability. So it's very little personal to me. So I think I'm emotional at times. But again, I do think sometimes the other storylines kind of just felt rushed or kind of just like, yeah, Lazy Boy or this family during COVID. Like, it didn't really feel like earned. It kind of felt like it's thrown in there. I think the movie could have benefited a lot from being told in chronological order. That's just me personally. But again, there were once where I was like, oh my God, get on with this. I'm so bored. Or back to Tom Hanks' character, Tom Hanks' family storyline. Never. I never felt like that whatsoever. I just wish the movie was told a bit cleaner and more structured, if you ask me. But still, I just think it's a very well-made film. Alan Silvestri's score is beautiful. Alan Silvestri, to me, probably my favorite composer, right there with Michael Giacchino and Hans Zimmer. When I think of Alan Silvestri, I think of Back to the Future. I think of Avengers, obviously, for my generation. Forrest Gump. Like, it's a beautiful score. And this movie, I thought the score in this was just moving. It's beautiful. It's very touching. And again, I was humming after the movie. I was like, very beautiful. And the score for We Live in Time, I think the score in this movie almost is a character of its own. And I was just very moved by the score. Again, got me a little emotional at times. But it's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful score that kind of adds a lot to the film, to like the overall story. and to the overall theme of the movie. I just fell in love with the score a lot. But I do think this film's getting a little too harshly criticized. I think it's at now, it was at 25 when I saw it at Rotten Tomatoes. Again, Rotten Tomatoes and Oscar, I'm like, yeah, we don't really agree with that as much. It is now at a 36, and I think that's kind of a little. It's a little harsh. I think a lot of people are criticizing because it's all spectacle, and they're not wrong. I can't argue with that. It's definitely a lot of spectacle more than story, and I'll give them that. But I still thought the whole time, I'm like, wow, I'm still moved by this movie. I'm still invested. I never wasn't bored. Never once like, oh man, this sucks. No, I was very impressed with the storytelling and and how the film was told in a very beautiful way. So I give honestly a 7 out of 10. I think we can accept being a little harsh to this movie, but I think if you're a big fan of Zemeckis and Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, and are curious about this kind of old innovative storytelling of the technology, I think it's a very well-made film. I think it's a very interesting film to watch. Again, if you like good emotional stories like this, definitely worth the watch. So yeah, I'm probably give it a solid 7 out of 10. Would I watch it again in theaters? No, I'll probably watch it again when it's on streaming or on DVD or Blu-ray, because I was very moved by the performances and the story and the themes of the film. So like I said, both these films really had a strong message about past, present, future, living in the now, appreciating the time. You never know what tomorrow might have in store for you, good or bad. And life's not promised. And I think both these films really explore those themes very beautifully and very much with great respect and dignity. So I would recommend both these films to anyone. So yeah, guys, that is my review roundup episode for this week for both We Live in Time and Here. Like I said, if you like films about time and emotional stories and then stories that kind of make you think and reflect on your own life and think about like, yeah, where was this? If my childhood home, my childhood apartment, my childhood this whatever, and like think about like how this house and here saw so much history and like the whole generation of like history and what this house and location saw. It makes you think of like, what did my apartment see a couple years ago? What was this land a couple years ago, decades ago, whatever? And again, it makes you kind of think. It makes you think about your own life and a lot of reflecting. So again, if you like films like that, very mature films about time and love and just overall just like how we see the world, I think these movies are definitely worth checking out. Look out for next week's episode of the full episode of the podcast. Again, we have our review of Red One, and I hope to have another review run-up episode for you guys, hopefully by Monday, if not Tuesday, because I have my review with Smile 2. Also, I'm trying to see Nora this weekend before. Yeah, I think it's still playing in Phoenix. I'm trying to see Nora this weekend before I'm sound like I'm really itching to see Nora as soon as possible. So I'll hopefully have another review run-up episode for you guys, hopefully by next week, if not the week of Thanksgiving or the week of my birthday, which is the 21st. But hope you guys enjoyed this week's review roundup episode of me rambling about these two well worth seeing movies, if you ask me. Like I said, guys, hope to hear from you guys soon in our review and comment section. We want to hear from you guys, both good and bad. We're looking forward to the rest of the year. What shows what you're watching, what shows are coming out soon, what movies are coming out that you want to watch before the year ends. We want to hear from you guys. But until then, my friends, we will see you guys at the movies.